Hello, my name's Jon Hill and I'd like to spend 10 minutes today talking to you about acceptance and commitment training, which is also known as ACT. And I'd like to spend some time talking to you about it, mostly because I actually think that it's really cool, which I'm aware is not a word you normally hear associated with what is essentially behavioural therapy. And that might be because either A, I'm a humongous nerd, or B, because it really is cool, and I'm going to convince you of that fact over the course of the next 10 minutes. We'll see. Because ACT is essentially, at its simplest, it's a behavioural therapy. It's about taking action, but not just any type of action. ACT is about taking values-guided action. There's a big existential component to it. It asks those big questions, the questions like, what do you want to stand for? What really matters to you in the big picture? Who do you want to be? How do you want to spend the time that you've got available to you here on planet Earth? ACT aims to help people to get clarity on what their values are, and then use those to guide, inspire and motivate positive behavioural change. So it's about values-guided action. It's also about mindful action, action which is taken consciously and with full awareness, open to your experience and fully engaged with the present moment. ACT actually gets its name from one of its core messages, which is about accepting the stuff which is outside of your personal control and committing to taking action that enriches your life. The aim ultimately is to help people to build rich, full and meaningful lives whilst also accepting the pain that life inevitably brings with it. So it does that in various different ways, which are summarised by this handy, if not 100% user-friendly or palatable diagram. They call it the ACT hexaflex. And what you've got in the centre there is the core ACT concept of psychological flexibility. And around the outside, the 6 core ACT processes of acceptance, diffusion, contact with the present moment, self as context, values and committed action, which thankfully can be summarised as open. Open to your thoughts and your feelings and all of your internal experiences, whether they're pleasant or unpleasant. Aware of the here and now and fully engaged in the present moment, present in mind as well as in body. And active. Not just engaged with the present moment, but engaged in the whole of your life. Knowing what your values are and committed to taking action which is consistent with those values. But the thing which I think is coolest of all about ACT is you can actually throw away all this technical stuff, anything that even sounds like jargon, and use any one of countless really nice metaphors to bring the ACT processes to life. My favourite one involves imagining yourself as being the pilot of a plane, because everyone's life has ups and downs, great days and not so great days, and sometimes it is kind of like you're the pilot of a plane, which we call the plane of life. And on your plane, you've got lots of passengers, and those passengers are all of your thoughts, feelings, urges, memories and sensations. And being alive tends to be something like this. There you are, piloting your plane, and hopefully flying it more or less in the direction of the stuff that you value in life, towards adventure or creativity or intimacy or growth or whatever else it is that really matters to you. And when you do that, it's like heading north. It brings you a sense of aliveness and vitality. And as we're on that journey, those passengers are pretty much constantly piping up, offering this kind of running commentary on the journey, on the direction the plane's heading, on how we're doing as a pilot. And some of those passengers try and tell us where to go and what to do. And some of them are kind of scary, a bit like monsters. Thoughts like, I'm going to fail, or I'm not good enough. Feelings like fear or anxiety, or irritation, or embarrassment, or even shame. And it seems like the more that we head our plane north, the more these guys seem to keep piping up. And what's also interesting to notice are some of the very common, but really very ineffective ways that we tend to try to manage these characters. One of the most common ways that we respond to these guys is we allow them to hijack us. This is normally more passive than it is deliberate. We just kind of move to one side and allow our passengers to assume the controls of the plane. It usually happens very subtly and almost unconsciously. We just kind of mindlessly follow where our passengers are leading us. We kind of mindlessly do whatever it is that our thoughts and feelings would have us do in a particular moment. To give you an example, I've got a really important life direction around health and fitness. And the main way that I tend to bring that to life day in, day out is through running. And over the past few years, I've done 10K races and 12K races. I've done half marathons. Last year, I did my first ever full marathon, which is a really big deal for me. And day in, day out, the way that I tend to honour that value is by running to work. But not uncommonly, I wake up in the morning and my mind is already like a machine, churning out all these reasons why I shouldn't run to work, why I can't run to work. I'll wake up and my mind will be telling me, well, it's cold outside this morning, and the street's going to be full of commuters, I'm going to have to elbow my way through them to get to work. And don't forget that knee injury I had last year. I think I felt a twinge there last week. And of course my iPod armband thingy is a bit loose at the moment and it scratches me when I run, and I can't possibly run with a loose iPod armband thingy. And it seems completely like common sense, it seems it's very seductive. And the next thing you know, a week's gone by and I've spent every day dozing on the bus to work, getting to work feeling sleepy and irritable, and most importantly feeling further away than ever from actually pulling on my shoes and going for a run. And for me, that's the problem. It's not an issue if I miss running to work once in a while. That's not a problem. The problem is that allowing yourself to be hijacked by your passengers can become a habit. And it's just really not an effective way of moving forward in life. If we always rely on our passengers to tell us what to do, we're never going to have any chance of consistently flying our plane north, because our passengers are constantly contradicting each other. One minute they're saying, go this way. The next minute they're saying, go that way. Our thoughts are constantly changing. One minute they're saying, my mind will be telling me, I need to run to work tomorrow. The next minute my mind is saying, oh, but my iPod armband thing isn't working, so I can't run to work. If we always rely on our passengers to tell us what to do, we'll never have any chance of consistently doing the stuff that most matters to us in life. Another common way that humans tend to respond to unwanted passengers, especially in Western culture, is we try to change them or control them or get rid of them. We struggle with them. So it's kind of like we land the plane and we jump in the back and we start struggling with all these passengers, trying to throw them off. And it seems like the intuitive thing to do. No one likes having unpleasant thoughts and feelings, and especially in Western culture, where people are always saying, listen, don't worry, or think positive, as if it really was that easy. Because the problem is, it feels like the more that we struggle with these passengers, the stronger they seem to get. The more we engage with them, the more prominent they become in our lives. Sometimes we'll even strike deals with the passengers and say kind of like, listen, if you just agree to stay scrunched down at the back, we don't have to see you too often, I promise that I'll fly the plane wherever you want me to. I promise I won't take it in any directions that make you feel threatened. And in doing so, we lose a little bit of choice and direction and a little bit of life purpose. All because we're taking actions in service of keeping our passengers quiet, in service of avoiding having certain unwanted thoughts and feelings. And we can carry on this way indefinitely, either grounded and struggling, or circling and heading every which way but north. But there is another way, and it's a way that comes from understanding two important things about our thoughts and feelings. The first of which is that we really don't control them, or certainly we have a lot less control over our thoughts and feelings than we usually like to think. I'd like to ask you to do a quick experiment with me. I'd like you to say out loud the first word that comes to mind when I say, Mary had a little... If you said lamb, you get a prize. But notice though, how the mind just immediately pops that up to the surface, completely outside of your conscious control. That word just pops up there. Another experiment here, I'd like to ask you to kind of take a journey back in your memory, back into your childhood, and try to locate your earliest childhood memory. Okay? And once you've found it, just allow your mind to rest there for a moment and bring it to life a little bit. Who was there? What were you doing? How did it feel? Okay. And now I want you to take that memory and just delete it. Hit the delete button and clear it from your mind forever. Any success? It's more or less impossible to do. Something we have to come to terms with is that we've actually got a surprisingly limited amount of control over the stuff that goes on between our ears and under our skin. But here's the other thing. We may have less control over our thoughts and feelings than we like to think, but our thoughts and feelings don't control us either. It's possible to do what we want to do and do the stuff that matters and take action regardless of what our passengers are shouting at us. Another experiment here. I'd like to ask you to let your left arm just hang down by your side, and for the next 45 seconds we're going to concentrate all of our mental energy on making this left arm go numb. So I want you to replay the thought in your head. My left arm is numb, I can't move it. My left arm is numb, I can't move it. And then I'd like to take that arm and use it to scratch your nose. Again, if you successfully did that, you get another prize. It is doable. And there's something important here. If we can come to terms with this idea that while we have a lot less control over our thoughts and feelings than we may think, nor do our thoughts and feelings control us, if we can get to grips with that idea, then suddenly we have a choice. And the choice is to stop struggling. It's like getting a message from air traffic control. A message that says, you're flying this plane, not your passengers. Feelings can't take over the controls unless you let them. Thoughts can't hurt you. You're the pilot of this plane. That message gives us choice. And the choice is to stop struggling with unwanted thoughts and feelings and head your plane north once again. Knowing that, once you do that, the passenger will start piping up just as loud as they ever did. That's never going to change. But if you can just notice them and create a little bit of space around them and continue heading your plane courageously north, then the first thing that will happen is you'll be doing more of what you want to do in life, more of the stuff that matters to you. What can also sometimes happen is that in doing that, these passengers start to fade away a little bit and become less prominent. Sometimes people even find that other passengers, wise, supportive passengers, come to the forefront when maybe they've been a bit sidelined in the past by the mean and nasty ones. So what ACT allows us to do is to learn certain tools and techniques to get a bit of distance from the uncomfortable thoughts and feelings that often get in the way of us doing the stuff that we most want to do in life. It takes practice. It's not always necessarily easy, but it's certainly easier than allowing yourself to be hijacked by unwanted passengers. So I hope that made sense. I hope you also think that ACT is cool now. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.